92. Days before the end of his presidency, Biden ordered $8 billion worth of weapons sales to Israel, mostly precision-guided bombs. Exactly what the IDF wants, to deliberately kill thousands more Palestinians in their Gaza schools, hospitals, apartments, and refugee camps. Not my accusation of intent, but their history of thousands of accurate-to-the-meter mass civilian assassinations, also including 160 journalists and a number of aid shipment truck crews obediently reporting their identity, location, and peaceful purpose to IDF aerial gunners so they would hold fire. Or not, chuckled the Trigger Boys. Congress has the option of voting down any or all of these many billions in total sales, but the weaponeer-paid pawns never muster even 10% to object to their government savaging of its own laws. Federal judges are a little less captured by the war business, but the lawsuit example I will detail is no slam dunk to understate our roadblocks forcing Supreme Court appeal, to which we can expect 6-3 for unconstitutional World War dictatorship that will only be broken by adding 4 more constitutionalists to today's remaining 3. But allow me to describe our tough preliminary battle anyway. Your Honors, the American Constitution reserves war choice to all citizens, not the commander-in-chief charged only with war making, not starting, that only we authorize through our Congress of Representatives, who may vote up or down specific to adversary and location declarations of war. Had our founders observed giant American weapons makers asking the executive to authorize their delivery of arms across the world to their chosen proxy armies to kill soldiers and mostly non-combatants the weaponeers hate and want dead while getting rich doing it, then they and all federal judges at the time would have said, "You world warriors certainly do choose and declare wars, that you have the lethal means to cause foreign armies of your choice to fight, clearly risking your selected enemy's return invasion of the American people, who will never choose pointless aggression. If you can persuade Congress to formally declare these enemies in wars, American voters also have the right and choice to later fire you evil, greedy, war disaster boosters. We wrote your charter to permit even foolish legislator majority war choices. But we also know that weapons shipments identically but illegally starting and expanding Americanized foreign wars fought by any soldiers we arm are likewise American wars that our Constitution forbids without express declaration by the American People's Congress representing them. Our founding father, George Washington's determination to avoid foreign entanglements primarily envisioned only necessary episodes of American homeland defense against invasion, just like his military leadership of colonial defense that won our great American independence from the invading tyrant George III. Should the American people themselves, with our soldiers or with our weapons handed to foreign armies, choose to invade outside or just defend our own attacked country, then their representatives must declare all such wars. Neither the president by fiat or representatives of the people or private war dealers may start and fight wars by any manner of force, permission, and action that by subterfuge avoids lawful congressional declarations of war. Their formal choice will always empower the American people to choose only legislators who achieved good and merciful outcomes with our reluctant defensive wars of last resort, being the only conflicts that should continue smart, humane, patriotic politicians' careers. Why do you think that we made only family guardians war choosers? To be the polar opposite of world colony attacker Great Britain, and to charge the modest, safe life treasuring American people, no other power med or commercial usurpers, with their power of war or peace. Judges, I hope that you enjoyed my channeling of our founders. May they sigh contentedly, but briefly, before they hear what we're up to today, and turn over in their graves. Their spirits will break in floods of tears to hear that for 75 years, American executives and Congress, corruptly bribed by history's most mammoth and lethal weapons industry, have fueled, therefore fought 250 foreign wars, killing 16 million people, including many tens of thousands of American young men and women, all without a single constitutional declaration of war. 100% of these horrors declared fully illegal by all independent constitutional scholars. Weaponeers and leaders in total unconstitutional command of these hundreds of wars of foreign civilian genocide, not just defensive military actions, collect every officious mass murder excuse from eggheads on salary from politically partisan or arms merchant paid think tanks, all in full contempt of, not ignorance of, the many American and world laws against civilian murder that any political military college degree program made them read and learn. I sue on behalf of 8 billion doomed by unlimited conventional world warring, certain to explode nuclear. Sue for your halt to one weapon or 1 billion sent beyond our borders without majority congressional declaration of the exact enemies to be killed by anyone we arm, not just the American military. Our actions in all instances identically murderous. Initially, judges, prioritize your weaponization halt of America's worst undeclared proxy wars. Concentrate on attack weapons designed for civilian slaughter, sent to Israel, Ukraine, and Saudi Arabia. President Trump appears ready to resume bomber and bomb assault on Yemen's habitations, farms, and industry. His Saudi general and pilot agents blasting and starving hundreds of thousands of non-combatants. Hating all of Gaza's Palestinians, he will deliver all 8 billion in weapons to kill all possible and ruin the survivors. Bombs that Biden poured into the pipeline in the last days of his presidency. In Ukraine, Trump will encourage Zelensky's surrender of Russian-stolen East Ukraine in return for Putin ceasing his westward march for a year before his tattered armies and economy's rest permits him to finish killing all Ukraine. My suit encourages, doesn't resist defensive frontline weapons from America to defend Ukraine without attacking Russian territory and civilians, which will cause an enraged Russia to nuke Ukraine, causing NATO invasion of Russia, then firing 100% of superpower nukes to kill all humanity. Just please invite Congress to declare this Ukraine defense, truly humanity defense war. You must stop American F-16 attack tank distance missile attempts to fully defeat the Russian invasion, which would be every Ukrainian's dream come true, but only for the mere days before 9,000 hydrogen bombs fry, then freeze all 8 billion of us. Judges authorize American defense of Ukraine conditional on Zelensky ending 100% of Russia invasion except targeting explosives aimed at Ukraine. 100% of military support permanently withdrawn after his next Russian civilian bombing. Why do you think that President Biden banned all such nuclear provocations for a year and a half before the weaponeer bribers overruled him? I am filing an associated suit with identical doomsday-canceling purpose by different actions. Require our president to coerce Zelensky out of launching any more drone bomber waves from any Mideast or African, not American supplier, attacking Russian civilians, and bribe him to stop invading Russia, both in return for magnificent front line and all Ukraine missile defenses, without which his army and nation are almost certainly to be lost. On January 22nd and 23rd of 2025, Ukraine launched drone attacks on multiple Russian civilian targets. Consistent with our war-declared military aid-only suit, I and you must make this American and world defense action, including defense aid, an urgent request for Congress to formally declare this military and military restraint defense of Ukrainians and all 8 billion nuclear targets. Your honors, please just game out each impending scenario following your dismissal or rejection of the people's suits. Does not each aim at 17,000 miles an hour nuclear megatons upon you and your families? Talk about judicial responsibility with personal stakes. Recently, Ukraine attacked civilian apartment buildings deep inside Russia with drone bombs for the third time. A total of 1 death has been caused. Would not better luck next time, a real body count, end the world? All Russian military, Congress, social media, and executive agencies would explode in fury. 200 nukes on Ukraine, or 20 bullets in Putin's brain. NATO's plan in this instance is well known: a 1,000-mile, 1,000-tank rush to Moscow. Only Putin's underground 5,000 nuclear launch saves him by bringing down America's 4,000 to kill its own tanks. Only first striker Putin lives with 1,000 survivalists a half-mile deep with 2-year nuclear winter supplies. It'll take 1,000 years, but only the Russian Empire regrows. You know strategic Alexander Putin. He gamed this out years before I did. My main suit contends that weapons sent to proxies to kill with must require war declaration because first-degree murder is committed most by the agent who supplied the guns, bullets, bombers, and bombs, without which your soldiers or anyone else's kills nobody. Only the NRA lies that guns don't kill people, people kill people. Imagine, judges, another case in your courtroom. You're overseeing an accessory to murder trial. The defendant's lawyer argues, just because Joe gave Sam a .38 caliber 6-shooter and said, "Go ahead, pal. Now you've got the piece to fill Bob full of lead," doesn't make my client equally guilty of murder. Only Sam chose to and did pull the trigger. Wouldn't you say, you're right, the weapon supplier and inciter and enabler is not equally guilty? He's 5 times more guilty. But I'm most upset at the insane accessory 30-year maximum sentence, while I can nail only the also victimized shooter for 40. Judge Just as Joe both declared and committed that murder by arranging and weaponizing it, so our Constitution mandates that the people's, not commanders and armies' right to initiate or refuse, only by congressional declaration, all foreign killing that may someday save or destroy our nation and people too. This right must be preserved, not be removed. All war choice, from weaponizing proxies to sending American troops, has always been determined by our founders' limitation of all American war to our people's Congress Declaration authorized actions only. Since 1947, American weapons killed 16 million in 250 wars we weaponized. Why? Because not one American until today asked one judge to enforce our ripped up, stomped on, burned up Constitution. Well, somebody finally did. How would you honor your oath to uphold and obey that Constitution while refusing to enforce it? And does not every politician causing American weapon mass murder in foreign wars while fully dodging our Congressional War Declaration and requirement, while also deigning to vote down executive and arms merchant weaponized foreign war perpetration and sales they must report to Congress? Does not this violate their uphold the Constitution oaths of office too? Our case rests. Please make the only constitutionally and congressionally lawful decision available to you, your honors. Why has every nuclear and non-nuclear power NNPT signatory for 57 years only abrogated the treaty by escalating or allowing conventional and nuclear arms races and their consequently endless active wars? Because weapons companies pay campaign expenses of every politician in return for 1,000 times more of our taxes to buy their murder shit. And especially because only one loon among 8 billion shrieks ban bullies, bribes, bombs, and battalions. If you don't join me, you're stupid, suicidal, and no family guardian at all. The next thing that the weapons merchants did to make sure that governments kept handing over our worldwide $27 trillion per decade for imminent doomsday instead of obeying their disarmament treaty for millions more years of all world love and peace. They paid military policy think tanks to lie on their behalf, to present every military and civilian commander with fabulously expensive and complex dozens of different so-called limited nuclear war options claimed safe to fight, control, win, and stop. All for $100 trillion on the installment plan. Just borrow enough to bankrupt your grandkids after you're dead. Who cares? They tell leaders, someday one of your hundreds of regional proxy wars is going to go real badly. 2 of your overseas military bases will be overrun, and another 5 seriously threatened. Without losing another soldier or plane. Then why not wipe out 30,000 surrounding enemies with a couple of dozen little Hiroshima-sized tactical nuclear bombs? I remind my listeners that Vladimir Putin in Ukraine was in exactly this looming army wipeout crisis, described in Bob Woodward's book, War. Hours from launching his nuclear rescue before China and America talked him out of it. but only because, by luck, his 30,000 troops escaped. To continue the certain-to-happen-again scenario that all superpower first-strike nuclear war advisors lie in wait to launch in any of the hundreds of tough but opportune conventional military crises, they'll report, "Congratulations, Mr. President. Your 3 100-kiloton nukes fried or vaporized all but bleeding, irradiated remnants of those looming 30,000 conquerors of your own and proxy armies' bases. We're obligated to warn you, however, that the backer of your proxy war regional opponent will be forced to nuke a half dozen of those bases you just now temporarily saved. And you'll have to hit them somewhere else with more nukes. Then just get the top Russian leader on the phone and make it clear that only surrender to your victory prevents your next blows, real big and bad near their homeland that they'd never recover from. And of course no one's gonna suicidally blow this thing worldwide, right?" The commercially corrupted war advisors wrap up every scenario with, "We win, the world's safe." Folks, all this has been most nuclear superpowers' not-so-secret nuclear wars of your choice. Start and fight any H-bomb scrape to victory policy for 50 years. While their public propaganda also bullshits that all nukes are only for mutual assured destruction, unused standoff, that teaches all to never ever fire the first one. Begging the question, then why not ban them all by law we've already signed for mutual assured safety? Or at least sign the no first use pledge. Oh, please, stop asking embarrassing questions. My listeners will recognize the following history of limited nuclear war fighting research conducted by independent analysts who are not paid by weapons companies and who do not work for politicians paid by weapons companies, thus never motivated to lie like dogs for money, power, and votes. With 8 billion lives on the line, I will repeat myself. Many long and elaborate studies by those independent analysts investigated every aspect, scenario, and hypothetical progress of so-called limited nuclear wars. One scenario: let's blow a big nuke 100 miles above the center of the enemy nation. North Korea definitely, and the U.S. and Russia probably have such nuclear satellites poised. Electromagnetic pulses will fry every non-hardened computer chip coast to coast. Essentially every machine running food delivery, transportation, water supply, finance, and all other banking, heating, air conditioning, and communication is permanently dead, along with 95% of the entire nation's people in 6 months. They're dead. We rule the world. Hooray! No, that's just the corrupted government attacker's dream. Actually, other nuclear defense and attack by an EMP victim can proceed because nuclear launch mechanisms and military crisis communication networks are in many cases hardened enough against this EMP possibility to work, and the same massive second strike called for by thousands of incoming ICBMs could and would be lofted after total flash radiation, instant destruction of the nation's mostly unprotected machinery. In Annie Jacobson's book, Nuclear War, a Scenario is every scenario's shockingly singular end result. In 100 of every 100 nuclear war scenarios gamed out with the full consultation of the very Pentagon warriors with fingers on every button, the first nuke then quickly blows all the world's 9,000 every time. You're familiar also with my domino chain from Russia nukes Ukraine to 8 billion die. All nuclear bomb initiations of any size in every scenario of every independent research study proceeded thus. Several massive bigger tit for mighty bad tats followed before any leader thought 5 seconds about any surrender to survive option. By then, many dozens of opponents' military bases were destroyed, along with thousands of regional decision makers, including dozens of generals. As command and control disintegrated on at least one side, the superpower presidents nominally in charge of all launch decisions around the world would be superseded by headless automated launches. Also the option of surviving regional and base commanders, knowing that in 3 minutes they would eat 3 incoming. In this instance, they can and must launch everything they have, including getting all nuclear bombers off the runways and en route to their targets. Remember, this same scenario has to quickly overwhelm government flunkies, until then lying to please the president that the enemy is about to roll over and give up without firing another missile. Soon enough, every last war room nuclear war-fighting fool can only tell their president what's obvious on his own giant bomb and missile-lit screen. Hundreds of nukes are blowing. Thousands are airborne. You have minutes to launch everything we have, because you'll be damned if your 100% doomed population is not going to at least be avenged. You won't give in to any flickers of weird compassion for the last 100 million enemy civilians that you could spare to prevent total extinction. No, you're too horrified and sick, no longer human, to care about saving a few effing foreigners. Launch it all, in the world, and yourself proudly. My friends, they're about to do this to you and your family merely for money, power, and their chicken shit little elite careers. All against a body of national and world law ordering nuclear and conventional disarmament, against constitutions that order national defense, obviously the opposite of inviting 8 billion deaths, and trashing that same national defense only legally mounted by the people's congressional declarations of war, never with weapons that not 1% of citizens choose, and doomsday launched without their permission against all treaty law, constitutions order obedience of. The 100% of conventional wars slaughtering civilians and refusing to aid the survivors are also breaking hundreds of national and world laws to limit military force to defense or offense against enemy soldiers. All detonations nowhere near non-combatants. Violations also against every World War Crime Convention signed by most nations. Mostly I will continue to describe world-saving peace law that you and I must make. Though today I backed up to detail all the war and peace law long since made, just forever broken, while you stay ignorant, asleep, and doomed. So wake up, smell the coffee, and jump!